My parents had a knack for showing up uninvited at the worst possible moments. I'd barely had a chance to process my promotion before they were banging on my apartment door like collectors on a debt hunt. I should have noticed the warning signs, the stiff smiles, the generic store-bought cake, the absence of a congratulations. They didn't care how I felt, they only wanted to know my new salary. Then, without shame or hesitation, they demanded half of it. But what happened next would completely blindside them. I'm Jessica Hale. I've spent my life learning self-reliance the hard way. Growing up knowing no one would rescue me. I moved out at 18 with nothing but a scholarship, 2 suitcases, and a promise to myself. I would owe no one, especially not my parents. I worked long hours, studied whenever I could, and built my career step by step until I became a senior financial analyst at a private firm in Pittsburgh. People now see me and think I'm composed. My sleek dark hair, my tailored clothes, the calm confidence of someone who's earned her place. But they don't see the years of struggle, the constant reminders that I owed my parents simply for existing, the emotional bills they kept like receipts. When they arrived that night, unannounced, all of it came rushing back. Marlene, my mother, led the charge. A heavy perfume hit before her thin, practiced smile did. The one she used when seeking sympathy from strangers. Dad trailed behind, hands buried in his pockets, hiding who knows what. They dropped a flimsy cake onto my counter, pretending it was a gift, but their eyes were already scanning, calculating. "So," Mom said, sliding into a chair at my tiny kitchen table, "your salary increased quite a bit." Not a single word about my life, my feelings, my achievements. I tried to remain steady. "Yes. I've worked hard for it." Dad whistled low. "Better than us, Jess. And after everything we've done." The pause was meant to make me squirm. I'd heard that line for years, every favor, every allowance, every unpaid help they'd given me logged like a debt. Mom leaned in, elbows on the table. "We think it's only fair," she said quietly, "that you share 50% of your income, just to help the family get back on track." They framed it as generosity, as duty, as a bill I forgot to pay. My chest tightened. Old reflexes kicked in, shoulders back, spine stiffening. Because at that moment I understood the truth. This wasn't a conversation. This was a demand. I stared at them across my own table, the one I'd bought with overtime earnings, the one they never helped me move or assemble. Mom tapped her nails impatiently. Dad leaned back, self-satisfied. "That's not going to happen," I said at last. Mom's smile stiffened. "Don't be dramatic. Families support each other." "Support goes both ways," I replied. Dad scoffed. "We raised you, fed you, gave you shelter. You wouldn't be here without us." There it was, the old script recycled. Every time they needed something, it was the same story. Textbooks, rent, gifts they couldn't afford. Back then I had no strength to argue. Tonight something inside me broke. "You let me leave at 18 without questions," Mom snapped. "And now you act like we owe you an explanation." I clenched my jaw. "I left because living with you felt like debt at every breath." Her face flickered, annoyance then anger. "You're ungrateful." The word she loved above all. Dad leaned forward. "This is not optional, Jess. 50%. Starting next month. You earn well. We deserve a share for all we sacrificed." "You didn't sacrifice," I said quietly. "You survived. There's a difference. We are your parents. You owe us," he said, voice hardening. Something inside me snapped completely. I stood, not dramatically, just deliberate and controlled. The chair legs scraped softly on the floor. Their eyes followed me as I moved to the counter, shoulders tense, breath even, voice calm. "You came here tonight for one reason," I said. "Not to celebrate me. Not to be proud. You came to take." Mom's brow furrowed. Dad's confident mask flickered. I opened a drawer and retrieved an envelope I prepared weeks before I even knew I'd need it. Holding it between 2 fingers, I faced them. "This," I said, "is everything you're really after." Their eyes locked on it like a crow spotting shiny metal. They thought they'd trapped me. They didn't know the floor beneath them was already shifting. I placed the envelope on the table. Mom reached for it, but I gently held her hand back. Her eyes widened. "Before you open this," I said, "understand this. You do not get to walk into my home and demand half my life. Not anymore." Mom jerked her hand back. It's just money, Jessica. Dawn. Stop being so dramatic, Dad muttered under his breath. She's always been like this, thinking she knows better. I didn't respond. I stepped back, brushing my palms against my slacks. My heart raced, but my voice remained steady, unnervingly controlled even to me. Mom reached for the envelope. If you think this is bravado, I said. It's not. It's clarity. They exchanged glances, confused yet still smug. That confidence only comes from people who have nothing left to lose. Jessica, we're your parents, Dad insisted. This attitude, you think it separates you from the rest of us? I believe, I replied, that boundaries aren't disrespect. Dad snorted and Mom shook her head. Your job has brainwashed you. You've forgotten who raised you. I didn't waste energy arguing. Arguing with them was like running on a treadmill. Lots of movement, no progress. Instead, I pulled out my phone and stepped aside. Dana answered on the second ring. Everything all right? She asked. I nodded internally as I watched my parents hover over the envelope. It's time, I said. Dana's tone sharpened. Then stick to the plan. Let them reveal themselves. I hung up and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The energy in the room shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Mom noticed it too, her eyes narrowed. What plan? She demanded. You'll see, I said softly. The envelope sat on the table like a silent threat they hadn't recognized yet. Mom finally tore it open. Sheets of crisp, notarized paper slid out. Not cash. Not apologies. Not surrender. Just the undeniable truth. A truth they had legally committed to years ago. As their eyes scanned the first page, their smirks faltered. Fingers froze. Their confidence drained silently, completely. In that perfect, still moment, they realized this wasn't going the way they'd imagined. For a few tense seconds, the only sound in the kitchen was the hum of the refrigerator. Mom's gaze moved over the page, once, twice, 3 times, each pass stripping color from her face. Dad blinked rapidly, as if his eyes refused to accept it. Their hands, once so eager, now hovered uncertainly above the table. This isn't real, Dad stammered. Oh, it's real, I said. Your signatures are right there. Dad squinted. We didn't sign this. We never would. You did, I replied calmly. 3 years ago. Remember when you said you wanted to protect my future, and drew up a declaration, so I wouldn't be responsible for your financial decisions? This is that document. Mom's face twisted, searching for a loophole. We didn't understand what we were signing. You understood enough to pressure me, I said. Enough to tell everyone you were proud I stood on my own. But now that money's involved, suddenly it doesn't count. The silence that followed was heavy, uneven, like a table with a broken leg. Dad slammed the papers down. This changes nothing. It changes everything, I said. Legally, financially, morally. You have no claim to my income. You never did. Mom gripped the edges of the papers as if sheer force could alter reality. We didn't raise you to be cruel, she said, voice cracking in her usual performance. Cruel. I repeated. You demanded 50% of my salary the night I achieved something you never supported. You treated my home like an ATM. And now you call me cruel. Dad shoved his chair back, finger trembling as he pointed at me. Don't speak to your mother that way. I stepped closer. Then stop treating me like a paycheck. For the first time he had no response. Mouth moving but only empty air came out. Mom slammed the papers down. We'll see you in court, she snapped. You think a few pieces of paper will stop us? You already did, I interrupted. Their heads jerked up. What? Dad demanded. You already filed a petition, I said, calm and measured. A parental support petition. I received notice 2 days ago. Mom's face went slack. Dad froze. They hadn't expected me to find out so quickly, or speak it aloud. And yes, I added, I saw the fake messages you submitted, the one supposedly from me agreeing to monthly payments. 1 digit off my actual account. Sloppy, Mom gasped. Dad stepped back, shocked. You committed fraud, I said. You crossed the line from entitlement into criminal activity. Mom fumbled in her purse, frantic. We can explain. You'll have your chance, I said. In front of a judge. Dad's voice cracked. You wouldn't do this to your own parents. You already did it to your daughter, I said quietly. I'm just defending myself now. Right then the door buzzer rang 3 short chimes. Dad jumped. Mom gasped. I stayed still. Footsteps echoed. 2 women entered when I opened the door. Dana in a sharp camel coat, and an officer carrying a folder. Mom instinctively backed away, walls closing in. Evening, Dana said, calm and precise. We have documents for the Hales. The officer stepped forward. Marlene and Richard Hale shook their heads violently. This isn't necessary. We can talk, Jessica. Tell them it's required, the officer said. You're being served regarding fraudulent evidence submitted in a civil petition and attempts to coerce financial support under false pretenses. Dad nearly collapsed. You can't do this. We're family. Dana's eyes didn't waver. Family doesn't excuse breaking the law. Mom's voice erupted, high and frantic. She was trapped. She had planned this carefully. That envelope, every detail, every step was designed to catch them off guard. That envelope, Dana said, her tone sharp, contains a notarized declaration you both willingly signed. Ignorance is no longer an excuse. Dad lunged forward, voice cracking. We needed the money. She should parents. Dana didn't flinch. All she ever received were collectors knocking on her door. Her words hit hard. Mom pressed her hands to her face, gasping, dramatic tears falling. Dad grabbed a chair for support before his legs gave way. The officer handed over the documents. You'll receive your court date within a week, the officer said. Once they left, the apartment felt lighter, as if a window had been opened after years of stagnant air. But this was far from over. The courtroom was sterile, bright, and unwelcoming that morning. My parents sat together, huddled and pale. Mom's eyes were red from crying. Dad stared at his lap, jaw clenched so tightly it hurt to watch. Dana stood beside me, calm and steady. When the judge read the accusations, Mom erupted into tears. Your Honor, we only wanted our daughter's help. She abandoned us in our time of need. Dana stepped forward, papers in hand. Your Honor, if I may. The petitioners own property in this city and enjoy a reliable retirement income. Their claims of hardship are false. She held up the fabricated messages. These are fake. The number is not Ms. Hale's, and phone carrier records confirm it. The judge's expression darkened as he reviewed the documents. Mom's sobs grew louder, Dad muttered. This is absurd. Then the door opened. Beatrice, my grandmother, entered slowly, cane in hand. Silence fell. She took the stand, unwavering. Jessica asked nothing from these two, she said clearly. She left home at 18 and built her own life. They never supported her, they drained her. She owes them nothing. Mom's gasps turned to disbelief. Mom, how could you? Truth matters more than blood, Grandma replied, eyes fixed ahead. The judge leaned back. Given the fraudulent evidence, the lack of demonstrated hardship, and the testimony presented, this petition is dismissed. Furthermore, the court will impose a fine for submitting falsified materials. Mom collapsed. Dad stared straight ahead, stunned. Dana squeezed my arm, not in celebration but in quiet acknowledgement. A small decisive victory. Outside, sunlight hit me like a long-lost warmth. I inhaled deeply, letting the weight of years lift from my shoulders. Behind me, my parents remained frozen on the courthouse steps, defeated and speechless, just as the envelope had promised. In the following week, life felt muted and calm. No frantic calls. No guilt-laden messages. No pounding on my door. Just peace, the kind I hadn't known I needed. I moved into a smaller apartment near downtown Pittsburgh, high enough that the city noise softened into a gentle hum. I furnished it slowly. A thrifted blue velvet chair, a warm amber lamp, a resilient little cactus. For the first time, every corner belonged entirely to me. 3 days after settling in, a birthday card arrived. Beige with familiar, neat handwriting. Beatrice. Inside, just one line. You chose truth over fear. I'm proud of you. I held the card to my chest. No guilt. No theatrics. Just quiet love. But peace rarely remains untouched. A week later, another envelope slid under my door. My mother's shaky handwriting across the front. Inside, complaints, emotional appeals, and a request for money. No mention of the court case, no acknowledgement of the falsified evidence. Just expectation cloaked in pity. I folded it carefully, slipped it back into its envelope and tossed it in the trash. My hands were steady. That same week came a harder truth. Beatrice had passed peacefully in her sleep. The world dimmed for a moment, but it wasn't broken. Her attorney later told me she had left me her small home near Greensburg. I sold it and donated the proceeds to a local organization supporting women recovering from financial abuse. Felt right. One quiet evening I stood by my window. The city lights stretched across the river like scattered gold. For the first time, I wasn't reliving arguments or bracing for impact. I was simply free. I walked down to the river that night, letting the cool Pittsburgh air settle over me. The water moved steadily as if it had all the time in the world, and finally so did I. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Quiet, earned, unburdened. That envelope, once opened with so much anticipation, didn't hold money. It held the truth. The first boundary I had ever drawn without apology. If you've ever had to choose peace over guilt, if you've had to protect yourself from those who should have loved you most, share your story. And for more real stories of courage and reclaiming your life, subscribe.